Hello. In Parsha Shelach, right after the Chet HaMeraglim, the Torah gives us three mitzvos. The mitzvah of Chala, Nesachim, and Tzitzis. What's the reason why do we have dafka these three mitzvos after the Chet HaMeraglim? So I want to share with you an idea based on, or from the Sfas Emes. The idea is as follows. The Meraglim were great tzaddikim. So the Mefarshim ask, how is it possible that they did this Aveira? They were such great tzaddikim. So one approach that you find in the Mefarshim, you find this a lot in the Hasidic writings, is the following idea. Bnei Yisrael in the Midbar were at a very high madrega, very ruchnius madrega. Their food came from Shemayim, that was the mun. Their water came with them, with the ruchnius be'er, the be'er Miriam. They had the nani hakavod. The Meraglim were concerned that when we entered Eretz Yisrael, we'd in a sense go down in our madrega. We wouldn't be on the same ruchnius level. And that's why the Meraglim didn't think we should be entering Eretz Yisrael, and that was the mistake which they made. And this was actually the mistake. The Sfas Emes explains the whole point of entering Eretz Yisrael and what the Meraglim's job was supposed to be was to bring the Torah into Eretz Yisrael. The Sfas Emes points out when the Meraglim were sent to enter to spy out Eretz Yisrael, the Torah says v'yasuru, Yud, Taf, Vav, Reish, Vav. V'yasuru at the land. That means to spy out the land. The Sfas Emes points out that the root is Taf, Vav, Reish, from the root of Torah. That they were supposed to bring the Torah into Eretz Yisrael, like to Torah-size Eretz Yisrael. The whole point was to take the Torah that we got at Har Sinai and apply it in the world of, we have our own food and water, we have to make our own food and find our own water, and in our ordinary lives to bring the Kedusha and Ruchnius, not just when we're in the Midbar, but also when we're in Eretz Yisrael, when we're living more ordinary daily lives. That was the whole challenge of the Meraglim. That was the mistake which they made. So the Sfas Emes points out that's the pshat in these three mitzvos of Chala, Nesachim, and Tzitzis. The purpose of these mitzvos is to show that even without being in the Midbar, you can still have this high Ruchnius level when you have more of an ordinary life within Teva. And the three mitzvos, Chala, Nesachim, and Tzitzis, correspond to the three very special Ruchnius things we had in the Midbar. The Chala corresponds to the mun, that we're making our own bread, our own food, and the mitzvah of Chala shows us that you separate Chala, so it brings Ruchnius into the making of your Chala. So in the Midbar we had the mun came from Shemayim, and in Eretz Yisrael we have the mitzvah of Chala, where we bring Ruchnius and Kedusha into our ordinary eating of bread. That's the mitzvah of Chala. The Chala corresponds to the mun. The Nesachim is you bring some wine on the Mizbeach with the Karbanos. That corresponds to the Be'er Miriam. That you have liquids in your life, drinks and different types of liquids, and you can bring Kedusha into the liquids. You can use them for a mitzvah, for Kedusha. That's the mitzvah of Nesachim. So in the Midbar we had the Be'er Miriam, and now in Eretz Yisrael we can also have Kedusha with liquid, with the mitzvah of the Nesachim. And finally, the mitzvah of Tzitzis, the Sfas Emes explains, corresponds to the Anani HaKavod. Anani HaKavod symbolized the Shechina always surrounded a person, who always surrounded us in Eretz Yisrael. So with the Tzitzis, a Jew was able to be surrounded with mitzvahs. It's like the Gemara says, it's like the Shechina is with you when a person is wearing Tzitzis. So the Sfas Emes points out that he thinks these three mitzvahs of Chala, Nesachim, and Tzitzis are mentioned specifically after the Chet HaMeraglim to show this was the mistake they made. The mistake they made was they felt you can't have real Ruchnius when you're living an ordinary life in the physical world, when you're outside the Midbar. And to teach you that you could, Hashem gave us dafka these three mitzvahs. This is really the challenge that we have, that we can learn from this episode of the Meraglim, that the challenge is to take the Torah and apply it with us and bring Kedusha and Ruchnius into our ordinary daily lives using the mitzvahs that Hashem has given us. Okay, we'll stop here.